And we are back. So, here again with our first ever coach, Blake Schaub. And yesterday, I think where we left off, we were talking about our sons.
Yes.
And my son is, he's our baby, right? But our baby's now, 19-year-old, 6 foot, 240-pound bull.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Logan, and unfortunately, you were not permitted to name him Wolverine. But listen, you know what? Logan's that's a cool name. It probably cause him less grief
Right.
down the road.
Probably, and most likely nobody's going to shorten it, or he won't get a different nickname, right? If you're Wolverine Schaub, you might.
Yeah.
People might not.
But you know what?
Call you that.
At the same time, though, you grow up with a name like Wolverine, you might be, develop some skills, like some.
I mean, you're like a boy named Sue, right?
Exactly.
You either take a beating all the time, or you give them out. So.
Exactly. So, but kids are downstairs again, getting after it in the CrossFit kid class, and we're back up here talking about all things CrossFit over our time together. So, and I think the story that I wanted to tell you, and I don't know if I got to that point, but when I started taking Michael with me to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he was about 13 when he started, and I was adamant, and maybe it's a mistake, but I think I wanted to keep an eye, I know my son, and I think if you put him in a class with other kids, he'll see how the pace is, and he'll be fine to go at that pace, And I don't want to come across as that dad that's like, gotta be first. I don't, you know what I mean?
Ricky Bobby syndrome.
Right, but
first, you're last.
But there's a balance where you're like, where's the start button that you have to push? And I don't know. Maybe there's somewhere in a book about that, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, it's funny because we kind of were talking about that a little bit yesterday, and I thought, when Logan had started CrossFit Kids a month or two ago or whatever, most of the time it was during volleyball, so I wasn't able to go and whatever, but I'd take him here and there, and he comes out. The one class, I'm like, oh, how'd it go? He said, oh yeah, it was good, and what'd you do? And he tells me a spattering of what they did or whatever. He's like, yeah, it was a partner workout, and I worked out with so and so, and at the end, we figured out that if you move slower, then you don't have to do as much. And he said, but we only did that for 2 minutes, and then we finished really fast and hard. And I said, oh, okay. And I went home, and again, because we are very much at odds whenever he says something like that. Now I'm just kind of I accept it, and then I went and I had a conversation with Jess, and I said, hey, maybe you should talk to him about this. And I told her the story, and she's like, why don't you say something? I said, because if I say it, it's not gonna be accepted. It's just not gonna work. And and she sat him down and had a conversation with him, and he's like, oh, okay, now I get it. So it's now he gets it. You don't want to have to take, if you have to slow down, then you slow down. But if you're just man, this is really starting to suck, I'm just going to slow down, you don't do that. But that's, whenever you're in a class with other kids and you're partnered up with somebody, or even in a regular class, you're partnered up with somebody you're new, and they're like, oh, let's just take a minute, right? And it's wait, why?
Right.
Or if you go, and I'm sure you've experienced this before too, but you go out and you're running, and Murph is a great example. You're on that second mile, right? And all you want to do is stop. But it's well, shit, if I stop, what's going to come of that, right? And then you just figure well, but if I stop, I'm just going to stand here. Or I could slow my run down to a jog, or I could walk for a minute or so, and then at least I continue to put one foot in front of the other and move toward the goal, as opposed, but at that point you're so, just I just want to be done, but stopping doesn't help you.
Right.
And I think once you get into a training program for long enough, you learn that, right? And I think again, if you're in a class with path of least resistance, you don't get that always, right? But
Right.
if once you learn that, then you're like, oh well, this is like I know that stopping is stupid,
Right.
Like
Right.
I'll walk until I can run again, but like stopping is awful. And yesterday, when I dropped Logan off, Alex was saying like every time we do burpees, we talk about you because anytime somebody rests with their hands on the knees, Andrew always says, Blake says, you're halfway there. Just keep going. Like, well, and that's true. And like,
Right.
why? The hard part of the burpee is getting to the floor, right? So if you go halfway there and rest on your knees, you'll just put your hands on the ground and take a breath on the ground and stand
Yep.
back up.
It's funny how the thought process works, and I think exactly to that point. So when I approached my friends who I trained with, and this wasn't a class, this was at the school where my friend taught, early Sunday morning, we'd go in and train, by ourselves, a very small group of us. So Michael started training, and one particular, he got to be about 15 and a half. Every one of those guys that was like, yeah, man, you're welcome to train with us. That's cool that he's here. They still liked having him, but 15 and a half, each of them separately takes me aside and they're like, hey, man, just to let you know, like I can't go easy on him anymore. They're like, he's too strong, he's too fast, and he doesn't forget anything. And that to me is like, that's something that I've noticed about him. All of our kids, they're whether it's athletics or, whatever. I mean, like, and I'll share this with you because it's almost, I guess it's funny. Well, but I thought it was funny. Michael is that kind of kid that if he can't be bothered, forget it. Whereas Alex and Emily, they were like, and I want to play this sport, and I want to go to dance class, and I want to that, and they were all about it. Michael is like, can't be bothered, and then something will strike, and like, jiu-jitsu was more like hey man, come on, why don't you train with me? It'll be fun.
Right.
And he liked it, but I also realized, I'm like, all right, he's rolling with grown men, all of whom had multiple belts in several other disciplines, and I bring that up because it was like while we were jiu-jitsu only at that time, every one of these guys had a background elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't in a beginner's class. It wasn't in a kid's class. And the more he rolled with them, the more confident he got. One of them was his, he taught Michael, all of our kids, 5th and 6th grade, either homeroom and or math. And one of the first times Michael got on the mat with him, he goes, okay, 13, okay, Mr. Rowe, this is for all that math homework. And Steve's like such a good dude. He smiles. He goes, "Oh, okay, Michael." But as he got older, he just got proficient. And I will remember this. And you'll get your day. You will have it. Whether it'll probably be like more of like a CrossFit scenario, I would think. But you won't ever forget it. So the nature of the class is like you drill. Okay, guys. Today's lesson plan, like the workout of the day. Today's lesson plan is we're going to work on arm bars. Or we're going to work on guillotine shows, whatever. So you practice and practice and practice, and then you move around with different partners, Then when you get to the last maybe 40 minutes or so, all right, you got a mouth guard, go get it, and now it's like sparring.
Yeah.
And what you'll do is like 5-minute rounds, and you'll partner up. And so you got a big mat area. And it's like, you and me and 2 other guys here, 2 other guys there, and round it goes. If there's an odd number, you have 1 guy out, right? So this particular day, and it was hot, like kind of like it is in here today, it's hot, and you're going and you're exhausted. I mean, probably drilled for like an hour and a half or however, hour 45. And the next thing we pair up. So I have my first 5-minute with one of the other guys. And then as we do the rotation, who am I up with now but Michael? And, I'm tired and, we're all tired. So just long story short, in an effort to minimize, now you still practice takedowns and you still work the takedowns.
Yeah.
But in an effort to minimize having to take down like all the time, often when you roll, you start on your knees.
Right.
You face each other like in a kneeling, like a crouch, touch hands at the buzzer and go, right? Like touching gloves in boxing, right? So, buzzer goes off. We touch hands. As soon as we touch hands, he grabs my wrist and pulls me across. And instead of thinking like, all right, defense, first thing that goes through my mind, I'm like, man, that was nice. Like, that was quick, you know? Well, I'm admiring his work so much. Now he's behind me. So he spins around, he takes my back, and I'm thinking, whoa, now I'm like, oh my God, like this guy, like, good job.
Yeah.
Well, say good job when you're the odd man out watching him do it, not when you're like the guy he's doing it to, right? So he comes around and he sinks an elbow. So I, right away, like I go, both hands on his arm. I'm getting my chin into the V in his elbow. Next thing you know, he throws one leg over, and I'm like, man, this guy is in there. He's like this. So I'm still critiquing like how well he's doing as I'm trying to mount my defense. Next thing I know, he's got my back. He's got both hooks in, and I just feel his other hand come up, and I'm like, son of a bitch. And I'm thinking, all right, there's no shame in tapping out. And I'm like, plus, I'm not sure his reaction if he chokes me out. Like, what's he going to do,
Right.
So, I tap. And he comes back around in front, and I'm like like I'm overwhelmed. Like, I'm so proud, But at the same time, I'm like, Michael, that was, good job, buddy. And he's like, yeah. Like, he's going like this. And I go, no, seriously, man. I said, I didn't go easy. Like, I didn't give you that. You understand that, right? Like, that was all you. He goes, yeah, Dad, yeah. And I'm still like I'm like, Mike, that was fantastic. He goes, Dad. And the little bastard points at the clock. He goes, come on. Like, we're wasting time. I'm like, okay. So, yeah. But you know what? I mean, it made me raise my game.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
for sure. Absolutely.
But those are the kind of things, and I think a lot of it, and that's the thing I think is so cool about, now seeing your boy out here training, I remember those days so well when Michael, and again, like, you remember when he was really little,
Oh, yeah.
he was like a force of nature. Like, he'd run, I think I said this on, I was a guest on Jay Mitlow's podcast a couple weeks ago, and I believe I told this story there. But you remember when Michael, not Jay, when Michael was in his ass biting phase?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my God, he couldn't have been more than 2, but he was mobile and he'd run around, and like a couple times he'd like run over to any of the young ladies that were like either coaching or working out. I'd like run up behind him and like bite him on the butt and run off. And I'm like, I don't even know how to start that, Michael, like what are you doing? And off he goes. I'm like, oh Lord. I think the only thing that probably saved like any kind of like litigation was the fact that he was only 2 and
Yeah, right.
It's
That's
like,
funny.
but it's and I think that's one of the things that we have just loved about this is especially bringing the kids program to finally to fruition, because it's something that we've wanted to do for quite a long time, and finally just made it happen. Because that's the one thing I've learned too is I think if you wait,
For the right time.
Yeah.
It's like being a parent.
That's
right? Like I mean, I remember when Jess told me that she was pregnant with Logan. She's like, I don't think we're ready. I was like, I'm pretty sure you're never ready.
Yeah.
Like if you wait till you're ready or till everything's perfect, then like you might miss your opportunity. You might, and I think with it's funny because obviously the kids that I teach are older than CrossFit kid age, right? When you're talking about 9th through 12th grade, but like there is such an issue with like it's not even just like adolescent obesity and whatever, but it's just so many people that come through that they're like just apathetic to taking gym class.
Yeah.
Like I'll cover a gym class, and you have these kids that like refuse to dress. Like they just can't. They just refuse to do it. And it's like, man, I think there's, and again, talking about the education system, we have, um, you know, I've met administrators before that are like, no, we should cut gym. You know, you get rid of it. Like, why? And
Right.
then you think about it, like, man, the amount of dopamine that you can release from getting some activity in, and like,
Mm-hmm.
especially, you know, like where I'm at, there's most of the rooms in the building that don't have windows.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see sunlight, you don't get any of those benefits, and you know you're in this, you know, recirculated air
Right.
all day, and then you have a chance to go and you like, you know, they tell you, what is it? It's an 8-minute mile for an A,
Mm-hmm.
and there are kids that are like the athletes in the building that don't do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
they refuse to get an A because they don't want to push themselves too hard or whatever. It's like, man, you know, like the benefits of that in by teaching kids young how to move properly, right? You eliminate so many of those habits that we just form. You know, it's like, hey, squat down, pick that up, and if you know you can't do that, or even it's funny, like during volleyball practice, a lot of times if my back is bothering me or whatever, I'll just sit in the bottom of the squat, and they're like, how do you do that?
Yeah. You know what's, listen, honest to God, I don't know why this popped into my head the other day, like out of left field. It had nothing to do with anything that was going on. But do you remember a while ago, it was a friend of one of our members, and I don't remember who for the life of me, but she was involved in like her community's soccer organization or something like that. And she wanted to be like the soccer mom who brought CrossFit like to augment the kids' training.
Oh yeah.
And we went out to Pisa, if you remember.
Oh, okay.
This was way back. It
Yeah,
was
that was a
Jen,
while ago.
Jackie, and you and me.
Okay.
And we went out to catch the tail end of their practice right after one of our evening classes at our original box, right? And we get there, and I remember like it was yesterday, you overheard one of the boys, and I am convinced of this, I really, and we both have sons and we both have daughters, right? I mean, I am convinced. Boys are dicks. And I don't necessarily mean yours and mine.
Right.
I'm just saying that as a gender, and I'm not speaking for you. You're my
Right.
brother. I love you. I'll speak for myself. You know, there's that strong tendency to like, no, I got it. Okay, well, do you? Because two things might happen here. One, you might get hurt. That's the worst case scenario. Two, you just might not do it right. In which case, like that progressive flow chart, you know, okay, you get it wrong, you're probably going to get hurt. You don't get it right, but you're not 100% wrong. Okay, you might not get hurt today. You dodge that bullet, but guess what? You keep pushing that, and
Right.
you know. But I swear, I think it was you that took me. You came over to the side and you go, yeah, this kid over here. I just heard him say to his buddies, like, okay, remember, you know, no heroes, guys, no heroes. So what are we all going to like? We're all going to sandbag so nobody looks bad.
Right.
I'm like, hey, you know what? This is not torture. You know, this is
Yeah.
supposed to make you better, and it will. But, and interesting, and what I do remember most vividly is we got him in a big circle, and we were just doing a warm-up. And we started off with like, okay, we're going to do some air squats. I think back then the industry standard in our community was Tabata squats, and then you transition it into bottom to bottom Tabatas, right?
Oh yeah.
And we're doing squats in Levi's, you and I. And the same smart ass that was like, oh, no heroes, guys, no heroes, you know. And now today he's probably some kind of, I don't know, you know, probably where he probably has like a number after his name, like the third or some bullshit like that, you know what I'm saying? And he's probably like working in daddy's office somewhere, you know. And I don't stereotype, mind you. I'm just saying, because this kind of attitude, real like arrogant, he looks at me and he goes, oh, how can you do a squat in Levi's while he's holding like a quarter squat? And I look right across at him and I go, how can you not do a full squat in soccer shorts? Like, it's not about, you know, I mean, like, what,
Right.
I'm not, you know, I don't, and I think more it's a mindset. It's, you know, you won't turn it on, because here's the truth. You won't turn it on during the game if you've never turned it on during practice.
Right.
It just doesn't, it's not, and if you do, then you're not tapping your truest potential. Maybe you'll find that out, you know, at some point, hopefully. But I remember that so vividly. And yet, you know, at the same time, you're like, my mindset was totally different back then. because we were doing I was doing CrossFit on deployments, and then I would come home and try to like reassimilate and do CrossFit at our box. But it was just I was a very different person back then.
And I think it's funny because today was our official last day of volleyball. We had uniform turn-ins and everything, and and we had 12 seniors, and
wow.
Yeah, it was a huge senior class, right? I mean, and one of the things I said to them today at the end was, I was in the past 3 years since I started doing it, I said, I'm so impressed by the work ethic that you guys have, right? Because again, I live in a world where minimal is okay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I had a conversation years ago with somebody I can remember. I turned tests back to kids, and this girl that got 100% immediately hit her test, and the kid that got like a 52% was like, I got a 52, and I was like, wait a second.
We are so far down the rabbit hole now.
When did this change? And like to go and have an opportunity to coach these boys who give it their all every day, and they're not like, look, we play against teams that have some genetic freaks. You're talking about kids that are 6'8" sophomores and whatever. We had we're an average size team, like maybe 6'1", 6'2" at the most, whatever. And but they dedicated so much time and effort to making sure they were working out, to make sure they were getting stronger, doing jump training, all these things that like they get, right? And even our younger kids too, like at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, they're like, we know how, to do this. And I said to them, I hope you understand that the hard work and dedication that you show to be as good as you can be at your sport, if you apply that to every aspect of your life, you will ultimately be able to achieve the things you want to achieve. Right? And I said, look, it might not, you might not always get the perfect result, but like being apathetic and just being like, like I tried my best, but if you don't really try your best, like what can you expect from that?
Right.
And it's like, and I had said that to the seniors, and then like the juniors, I said, look, guys, I hope it's a good lesson to you that these group of seniors who had tremendous success, right? They were the most successful they could have been.
Well, let me just put this in, because I think this is, as being a new host, right? Blake is a teacher at Shaler High School.
Correct.
And he's also a volleyball coach. Now, your team just came back from states.
Right.
Not for the first time.
Correct. We had made it to the state finals last year, and unfortunately, we did not get the result that we wanted. Right. We ended up losing to a team from the Philadelphia area, or the eastern side of the state, Parkland, and they played a great match last year. We did not, and I'll tell you what, it made those boys hungry, and it just so happened to work out that we made it back again this year, and so did Parkland. So we got to have a rematch, and it literally went the exact opposite way. So they beat us 3 sets to 0 last year, and then we beat them 3 sets to 0 this year. And, so we came back from Penn State as state champions, and
right.
3A volleyball in PA here, and and it's just such a cool thing because you get to see that hard work pay off.
Right.
Right.
And what a thing for the boys who well, not just juniors, but I mean the underclassmen last year, to have been there, to have made it all the way, right? All the way to the finals and lost. Anybody, and I told this to my son once, and my daughters, and again, it's not like he's some like hard case little Charles Bronson that I gotta like keep him on the path. I think largely because he's the baby.
Yeah.
He's the youngest and he's the only boy. And, for his first how many years, I was on deployments most of that time. So, when I would come home, I didn't, I exercised discipline in a way, but more than that, I was like, man, whatever. If he wanted to wake up and have, Hershey's chocolate syrup on Fruit Loops in the morning, I'd give it to him.
For sure,
Yeah. But I think it was one of those talks, and I was like, Michael, the thing I can tell you is this, believe me, and I can hear my own dad's words, like when I was a teenager, and if you can only believe me, trust me on this. Yeah. But somehow or other, a teenage boy always knows better, Easiest thing you ever do in your life, ever, is quit. And it gets easier every time, right? And whether hey man, I'm not going to work out today. But now you and I both know this too. It's a very, very slippery slope. It's like not even a tightrope. It's like a razor's edge, where you get to a point and you go, all right, I'm not going to quit. So what happens? I'm feeling chronic fatigue. I'm worn out. I've got pain in my back. But I know better. And I know that if I just get through this warm-up and I do some squats, it's going to go away.
Right.
And then it doesn't. It only gets worse. But now what you've done is you've gone so far through, like, I'm not going to quit. Well, okay, it's not quitting if you take a recovery day.
Yeah, right.
So, you kind of got to learn that throttle control a little bit. But I think for the boys who were on the team last year, how wild to like the full experience, then to come back. I imagine preseason they came in with a fire. Off season they trained with a fire.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? So again, good, congratulations, man. That's the way it ought to be.
Yeah.
Right? Hard work, but and you hit something else too, and I know this isn't really the nature of what we're getting after, but being in education, secondary education, for about a minute I was involved in education from an administrative. I don't even say that. Like, I don't consider myself an administrator. I was director of security at a large school district, and I'll tell you. And I mean this. I don't, not about hurting feelings or anything like that. I think the worst part about our school system, largely, I split the blame 50-50 with some weak-ass administrators and some parents, where you don't want to hear, oh, your kid can't possibly be part of the problem.
Right.
Or it's somebody else that needs to fix it. Now, on the other hand, I've got utmost respect for parents who have come, listen, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know. I remember sitting with this lovely grandmother. I mean, God bless her. She was just a wonderful woman. And she was like, I just don't know what to do with my grandson. I just don't know. And, the kid was, like second grade. And I think the craziest part about it was, the first time I was involved with him, I just happened to be in that particular elementary school when he was having an issue. And, I was able to go in, and I asked, I was like, well, can I go in and sit down with him? And they're like, sure. So I go in, and he'd already kind of like, as much as how old are you when you're in second grade? Like seven maybe?
8, yeah.
So he kind of trashed the outer office, like, there were like little pamphlets and things. He like tore them and, tossed them and stuff like that. So I sat down beside him. I was like, hey, man, I'm like, you okay? And he's kind of, he's coming down from like a crying fit, and he's like, he looks up at me, and he goes, am I in trouble? And I'm like, well, not for me. I'm like, I was just walking by, and I said, I saw you in here. I said, you look pretty upset. I go, is everything? Next thing you know, like, we're in this particular, it wasn't like the office lobby, but I think it was rather like the outer office of one of the vice principals of the school. Okay. And it's an elementary school. So it was like a little table, and it's got some, like, what do you call it? Like, not toys per se, but like learning toys, Right. So he's sitting in the chair at the time. So I sit down like in this, chair beside him. We start talking, and I must have spent like an hour with him, and we're talking a little bit this and this. And first of all, the boy's on medication, but he doesn't always take his medication, and that's like such a bigger issue, And like I said, when his grandmother arrived, and I got to talk to her a little bit. There's no quick answer for it. There's not. But I'm looking at this kid, 7 years old, and the one thing I remember, like it was yesterday, everything gets kind of resolved. He's calm. His grandmother's, she's calm. And I said, why? I said, listen, bud. And I did. I look at my watch, and I'm like, oh, my. I'm like, buddy, I'm sorry. I'm like, I've got to go. And real matter of fact, like not, it wasn't like a pivotal moment, but real matter of fact, he goes, hey, can you come back tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, I sure can. I said, well, I'm not sure what time. I said, but I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
He goes, okay. I got home and I told Jen, and I was like, it was kind of wild. I was like, here you are looking for the trouble to come from like the older kids, if there's going to be trouble, or external.
Right.
From a security perspective, you're always more concerned about the unknown, that unknown variable, like who's going to come through your door that you don't know. But, and this wasn't, it wasn't a threat of violence or anything like that. It was just a kid in a bad spot. So I told Jen, and she was like very point blank. She was like, well, you better fucking make sure you go back there tomorrow.
All right.
And I'm like, babe, believe me, like, no matter what happens tomorrow, I will be there, and I'll make it a point to find him, because, you got to wonder, like, how many times in a young person's life, oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whoever it might be, whether it's an adult figure, outside. And that was the thing too. And, I here's the thing. I mean, I put this up, like my hard skill sets I put up against anybody's as far as, can I do this? Yeah, absolutely. Right. And ego aside, I'd say better than a lot of people.
Yeah.
The part I had, really, really hard time with was we get these kids for maybe 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. The majority of the time is out of our hands. And that's the hard part, is when you, and again, like I say, not because a parent is having difficulty doing it. I mean, the resources available throughout Pennsylvania, I can't speak for any other state, but resources available in Pennsylvania, they're pretty impressive. I think too, though, you got to do something after that 8-hour day.
Right.
Like we,
can't always just be like, well, you're doing something here,
mm-hmm.
and then that's it. Whether it's, I read something the other day. It was like, this girl was in a tough spot. Her mom was, an addict or whatever, and there was a guy that just, like, I don't know what relationship to the mom it was or whatever, but, like, that guy made sure that she went to school every day.
Mm-hmm.
Made sure that she did her homework. Helped her with her homework if need be. Like, those kind of things.
Right.
It sometimes we look at it, as an adult or whatever. You're like, well, it's just a gesture,
mm-hmm.
right? But like, that gesture could, literally mean the world to somebody else, and you don't realize it,
Right.
And I mean, those, like, that's the great thing about education, is that you have those opportunities, but then, like, whenever you have follow up at home, even when it's hard,
mm-hmm.
right? Because there's times, like, and I know in our life, like during volleyball season, Tuesday and Thursdays, I'm gone, right? Pretty much all day.
Right.
Some weekends I'm gone for tournaments and things, and and it's tough, and you still kind of carve out that time to make sure the kids do their homework, make sure they do those little things, keep them in routine,
right?
And that's, I know that's hard for some people or whatever, but like, if you have that kind of force in your life, I think that ultimately it will drive you to be a better person.
No doubt.
Whatever it might, in whatever aspect of life
exactly
it
right.
shows up in.
Well, like you mentioned, there's some some administrators who let's cut phys ed, and so we'll go back a few years. All of our kids were involved in some capacity in, well, phys ed's phys ed. They all played sports outside of that. Music in some form, either playing a musical instrument or in chorus or musical theater or something like that. The girls took dance and things like this. Michael was coerced into the marching band in 7th grade because my wife was like, listen, oldest daughter's on the dance team. I think she was captain of the dance team at the time in her senior year, junior or senior year of high school. Emily was also on the dance team, and then as Alex, graduated, then Emily moved, like she became the captain and whatnot. So they were all involved. And Jen was like, but you guys are going to be, Michael's going to join. Kid never played a musical instrument in his life. So she goes to the band director, who at the time was awesome. I mean, I will say this about Riverview High School. At that time, they had a marching band bigger than a small college. And the choreography was like, ironically, now they have a football powerhouse.
Right.
Single A, it's single A because it's a small district. But now, Trevor George, if you ever listen to my podcast, which you should, because we put out some content, brother. All right, he turned this thing around, and the players, the boosters, the parents involved. I mean, it was awesome, right? And this has nothing to do with it's coincident. It wasn't cause and effect,
Yeah.
but it was a change in musical director, and I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. The music teacher that was like, okay, now you are the band director. The previous band director had moved on to another district. The music teacher that was handed that assignment was not his gig, it's not his thing, and attendance dropped tremendously. Now it's more like a little pep band, and it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame to see that, because now you have a formidable football team. Would it be great to see the band that you had,
Right.
back then? But such is life. But I think, point being, that was coincident, and this is happened at the same time, and it was cause and effect. A few years back, Emily, our middle daughter, now graduated from college, but she was I want to say she was an underclassman in high school at the time. This was pre-COVID, and they were like, hey, we're basically gutting the music and art departments. Not cutting, but like gutting, right? So Emily's all excited because she's in a musical group called the Grace Notes, like the a cappella.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like, what was that? Pitch Perfect. Yeah, the Riverview version of Pitch Perfect. But she's like, and Dad, and all the Grace Notes are going to go, and we're going to wear our Grace Notes T-shirts, and we're all going to talk, and I'm like, sweetheart, that's awesome. I never went to a board meeting in my life ever, but I went to that one, right? And I remember, like, you remember? I know you know it because we're movie geeks, you and I. The original National Lampoon's Vacation.
Okay.
You see, Russ, right? So Emily's all excited about this, and I said, "You see, Emily," I said, "what you're about to witness tonight is how a republic functions. Okay, like you're the people, we are the people, and the members of that board are our elected officials, right? So they voice our desires, our issues, our concerns, right? You're about to see this in action." It was the biggest fucking shit show I've ever sat through in my life, ever. Why have it? I mean, it's one thing if you're already, the decision's made and you got to go through this little fucking farce to get it passed and voted on. Don't involve the kids in it. Because now you got this group of young people who are passionate about their music and their art, and rightfully so, because for a small school, they have put some performers through over the years. Like every school, like you have those gems out there,
Sure.
Like even the kid that can't carry a tune, but he gets up there and busts it out.
Yeah, right.
They're deserving of a program. And I've always said that some of the most dangerous men I've ever known read music. One of them, a dear friend of mine, man, one of my mentors, he's dead center in that picture right there.
Okay.
He's the first one to the right.
Okay.
Visiting him years and years ago at his place in Northern Virginia, and I'm like, oh man, what is this? He's got this beautiful woodworking shop out in this 2-level garage that has like a wood shop on the top, and I'm like, what is this? He's like real matter of fact, yeah, I'm building a harp. I'm like, you're building a harp? He goes, yeah. I was like, cool. I go, do you play the harp? And like I'm a dumbass. He goes, no, that's why I'm building one. He's like, he's going to build it and play it. But this is what I'm saying. I mean, like you take away music, you take away art, that's expression. And for some kids, like that's their medium, that's their thing, right?
Yeah.
Jim, I could only hope that the philosophy behind it or the logic behind it, and it's still stupid, I think.
Right.
Oh, nowadays, every kid plays a sport outside of school. No, they don't.
Right.
And I don't know, man. It's easier to say from here than it is to go through like that teenage angst. Man, junior high, I was the fat kid, and I hated getting in my gym uniform, but I did.
Right.
Whatever we were playing, it was like seasonal. Like, if you didn't have anything to do or the teacher was probably fucking high or hungover,
Yeah, right.
you played dodgeball, But I think, there's also a fine line there between, are they learning something, even if it's camaraderie, even if it's teamwork, even if it's you don't always win, or is that teacher so distracted that he's at half court, flirting with his female counterpart,
Right.
and this thing's turning into Lord of the Flies over here,
And I mean, honestly, I think even in those situations, if you're teaching them coordination and you're teaching them, or you're just working through coordination issues and they're learning, and the younger kids are learning how to throw, they're learning how to catch, they're learning, learning to be more athletic or whatever, or being able to harness those types of athletic things, the benefits of those will carry you forward forever.
For sure.
And kind of full circle to the CrossFit Kids thing, if there were more people that were teaching kids in, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, how to properly pick something up off the ground, how to properly squat, how to properly, do all those things, it doesn't have to be, hey, we're going to use weights, we're going to do all this stuff. But when you do, I look at myself, I was always, when I first started training, I did mostly upper body stuff. Because I would play hockey and I was strong enough and my legs were strong enough to do that kind of stuff. And then I started doing CrossFit. I was like, holy shit. Man, I should have really lifted more legs because that was always a weak point. But luckily, I was lucky enough that I have good mobility. I have the ability to squat to proper depth with good ankle mobility, and hip flexion and things, and hip mobility and things like that. But if you don't ever teach anybody that, right, that's where you get kids and at 15, 16 years old that you're like, all right, squat. And they go to squat and they fall over.
Well, how many times have you seen it in a weight room? When we first opened our doors, we were in Verona, so literally straight down Allegheny River Boulevard from the high school, and we opened in September. So our first summer, we had a young man come to us and he's like, "Yeah, I want to play football at Riverview in the fall, but this is maybe right when school adjourned for the summer break. He had some time before summer camp started." So he's coming and training with us. And I'm like, hey, good, man, get after it. Do your thing. And the next thing you know, his mom comes and tells us, she's like, yeah, he has to quit because, the football coach who's long gone, it's not the same coach. And this guy had probably a 500 record, Yeah, I want you in the weight room. I don't want you doing that CrossFit stuff. And I'm like, you fat fuck. I don't mean it like that. I'm not body shaming, but at the same time, I'm like, do you know what you're talking about? I don't think you do. Well, back then it was so new, nobody really knew. They thought it was some kind of, I wouldn't even know what people thought. But I think, everybody, each of us, every CrossFitter has their own first story. And you mentioned mine last time. I felt like I got hit by a truck from that deadlift. It was deadlifts, single rep deadlifts after a thorough warm up. Yeah, and I understood the mechanics of the deadlift, and I'm like, okay, go. Every muscle in my body felt and I go back even further, to the 80s when Nautilus was all the rage, and they made a single machine for every body part.
Right.
And that was my frame of reference when I finished those deadlifts, and then later that night, and then the next day when all the soreness set in. I could picture every one of those machines, or the majority of them. There was one, I'll never forget it. It looked like a torture device, you sat in it upright, and it had these two rollers that came down in front of you. And you would bring your arms out like so. Yeah. And you would push back, and it was for your rear delts.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you can't just, I guess Arthur Jones didn't think you could just grab two dumbbells and,
Well, I'm sure he did, but it's a lot.
But he engineered the hell out of it.
It's a lot more profitable if you sell somebody a massive piece of equipment.
For sure. For sure. But I will say this too, though, his the cambered shell, right? The Nautilus shell, that gear design made sure that there was no easy part in that lift. Right. So appreciated it, got it. But I'm feeling rear delt activation, as you would, from stabilizing, your shoulders and shoulders back and working, posterior alignment, right? Wrecked me. Absolutely wrecked me. And I'm like, okay, coach, here's the truth of it. Put yourself through it. Let us put you through a CrossFit workout.
Yeah.
Then you see if it's a conditioning tool or not. But that wasn't really the point. But here he's got like, I want him in the weight room. How many times you see teenage boys, well, we're working on squats. And then you look at him and you're like, oh, God, put the barbell down before you get hurt.
Yeah.
Coach Glassman said this once early on, like 19 years ago. I heard him say it, and I was like, man, that's brilliant. It's so simple. It's brilliant. He was like, guys, everybody wants to do the sexy stuff. If you can't come in, don't walk in and say, when are we going to do the squat snatch? Or when are we do the hang squat clean? If you can't do an air squat, you have no business doing a back squat. Oh, cool, they're coming up. We all right to get them on?
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
fine.
All right.
See if he can handle it.
We have guests. We have guests in the studio. Come on in, man.
Are you done with the podcast?
No, we're rolling. We're rolling right now. You're on. Let's just say hi, man.
Hello.
This is Blake's son, Wolverine Schaub. No, I'm sorry, Logan.
Yeah.
Logan Schaub. You're not gonna give me a Wolverine. It does make a sound though, right? But it's more metallic. Isn't it like shring, something like that? And this is my baby. She's off camera. Not sure why.
Putting my shoes on.
Putting your shoes on. So we have gone over again, but that's okay because we got a lot of stuff to say.
On YouTube.
It will. It is going on YouTube.
It'll be the first time you're on the
Do I have to?
Okay, I'm getting out.
Do I have to talk to your agent?
I don't have an agent yet.
Well, you will after this thing goes public.
After you're,
I mean, I'm gonna try.
such a big deal.
After this goes public, you're going to probably have guys calling you asking to be your agent.
I'm probably gonna try. My dad said I'm gonna have a YouTube channel anyway.
You should. Listen, you know what I think is a good idea? I'm serious. I am really serious. How old are you? 11. 9. Dude, you got some size. Right? You're going to get an agent, I'm telling you. But listen, you know what I think would be an awesome idea for a YouTube channel for a young man like yourself?
Yeah.
Because you're into CrossFit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it. I think it would be very, very cool if you would set up and maybe like YouTube some of your workouts. Because you know what I think is, I think that there's groups, there's kids out there that are like, yeah, well, I'd like to try it, but I don't really, it's something for, everybody thinks it's for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like younger people might think it's for older folks or, oh, my dad does that or whatever. But I think guys and girls your age would see you on your YouTube channel. I think they'd love that. I really do. Mm-hmm. I think that would be cool. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably going to get some agents calling you. Hey, I got a deal for you, but don't talk to any of them. Let your mom and dad talk to them.
All right.
All right?
How'd it go today?
Good.
All right.
Good.
You ready to swim?
Mm-hmm.
Big swim meet tonight.
Oh, nice.
No.
All right, so we're going to cut it here, and if you're up for coming back, let's do it.
Whatever. I'm game.
All right, brother. All right. Probably in the next day or two, it'll be on YouTube. The CrossFit Pittsburgh channel.
You're like the marketing guy over there.
I'm telling you, you hear that?
And what
CrossFit Pittsburgh
where can I find this?
on YouTube. So, Logan, here's the part, because I'm just kind of doing this and I'm learning as I go, which is a lot of fun for me, and it'll be fun for you too. So the way we set this up on video, right? Mm-hmm. So we push this whole thing, and for those of you watching, this is a little tutorial. We push this straight to YouTube in video form, right? Mm-hmm. Then we upload that video to a website. Then the website digitizes the audio, and it pushes it out audio only to Spotify, Apple, and a couple others. But like Spotify and Apple are the ones that I remember, which is kind of neat because y'all have friends of mine. They're like, "Oh, dude, I listened to your podcast on my drive to wherever." I'm like, "Oh, cool," So that's fun.
Is this part gonna be cut?
No. You want it? You want us to cut you out?
No.
I don't think so. I think it's cool having you here.
Like whenever, while I'm talking right now.
No, we're live, man. We're not live. We're recording.
We're recording.
Because I decided a long time ago it's not good for me to go live.
It's probably good.
You never
Just
know.
in general.
I blame Tourette syndrome or PTSD.
Yeah, a little
Probably.
both, maybe.
I think you might have been even in the room the one time I actually said, and I again, it's is what it is. But we were doing a benefit for PTS. Yeah, I mean, way back when, and I said something to the effect like, I said, man, seriously, I'm kind of surprised that I don't have it. And I swear to God, every adult in the room who was like dear friends of mine, they all went. And I'm like, what? And I mean, it's, June is June's PTSD month, so I think, and then I remember again, like I paraphrased Greg Glassman. You remember when we used to do way back in the day, we used to do Fight Gone Bad.
Oh, yeah.
The first time we ever really did it as a crew from our box, it was Athletes for a Cure to benefit men's prostate cancer.
Right.
And then the next year, they redirected, and I want to say it was the Wounded Warrior Project, wasn't it?
Yeah, for a couple of years it was with
Yeah,
Warriors.
like I think like until it ended,
Yeah.
it stayed, or it ended as it was.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at a cert, and someone said, "Hey, Coach, I have a question, about Fight Gone Bad." And he asked that question, like, why did we change? Why did we? And real matter of fact, Greg was like, well, he said, Athletes for a Cure is a great organization, and prostate cancer research is a noble effort. And he said, but let me tell you this, and I remember this like it was yesterday. He was like, a child loses a parent to cancer, it's terrible. A child loses a parent to war, it's a fucking tragedy. And he was like, there are a lot of, and I like this because it showed that it was well thought out.
Yeah.
He's like, there are a lot of organizations that work towards and contribute to cancer research. And he's like, but I don't think we do enough, for our veterans. And I was really, kind of moved by that. So, so be it. How we got on that tangent, I'm not sure. But the 4:30 class is about to get underway. Logan's got to go win a swim meet. And Brother Blake has got to take him. So, all right, we'll do this again.
Sounds good to me.
Do something. Here's my challenge. I say this once in a while. I'm saying it again tonight. Do something nice for somebody you don't like. Do that.